From the 7th Annual Texas Transportation Forum in San Antonio, welcome back to the TxDOT podcast. I'm your host, Public Information Officer Larry Krantz. Thanks for joining us. Intelligent transportation systems, which range from synchronizing traffic signals to adaptive cruise control, have been on the rise around the world for the past several years. How they affect you depends on where you live and how you move between your destinations. For more on the technology behind today's and tomorrow's transportation systems, I spoke with Scott Belcher, the President and CEO of the Intelligent Transportation Society of America. Scott, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about what the Intelligent Transportation Society of America does.
So we're a public-private partnership and a trade association. We've got about 500 members, half of which are public sector agencies, state DOTs, transit authorities, universities, regional organizations. And then the other half are private sector technology companies, everybody from General Motors and Ford to Verizon, IBM, to the folks who build traffic signals and toll technology. And our purpose is to promote the use of technology to address transportation problems. And I think it's key that that distinction is to address transportation problems. Technology is a very cost-effective way to address a number of the issues that we face, but it's not the only one. And states and cities need as many tools as they can to address the challenges that they face.
Right, and each one is going to face a different level of probably not only congestion, but of different modes as well. Talk to me a little bit about what we're looking at here in Texas, kind of where we've come from and maybe where we're headed in terms of kind of from a state perspective of where we are transportation technology-wise.
Texas is really one of the leaders in the use of transportation technology, with institutions like the Texas Transportation Institute over at Texas A&M and the University of Texas at Austin. I mean, some great academic institutions that are doing great research. TxDOT has been a real leader in engaging the private sector in public-private partnerships and in tolling, in moving tolling along. And so I think what you're going to see is you're going to continue to see broad-scale deployment of technologies in the major cities by organizations like Houston TransStar and DART and VIA, and then you're going to and then that's going to start to play out in between the cities. But really where you're going to get the greatest amount of deployment is going to be in the cities as they try to manage the congestion that they have with a diminishing resource base.
I think there's been a lot of discussion, particularly in the last couple of years, about multimodal, people going from one mode of transportation to another as a way to kind of reduce at least four-wheel congestion, cars on highways. More buses, more trains, less people getting in their car and going from their home to their destination. Is technology going to play a factor in encouraging people to start using more public transit and reducing congestion in that traditional model, or is there a different way that technology can affect that?
Well, I think we're at a tipping point with respect to transportation technology. If you look at the companies that are shaping and reshaping transportation, they're not the traditional companies, but they are companies like Avago and Zipcar and Rideshare and Google and Microsoft. Not companies that you would have normally thought about in terms of transportation. And what this connectivity is doing is it is promoting multimodal transportation. So now you can, if you're going to take a trip from San Antonio to Austin, you can go to Google Transit or go to the TxDOT 511 system and find out how long is it going to take me, what's my routing going to be, is there a public transit option, and how long is that going to take, and make a good comparison. Then you can go, and if you decide you still want to take a private vehicle, then you have other choices. So, for example, on the panel we had today, we had a company called Avago, which is a ride-sharing company whose purpose is to revolutionize transportation so that cars become part of the public transit network, and so that you can rent a seat in a public car to get from Austin to San Antonio. Your other options, you can rent a private car for an hour. You can rent a Zipcar you can rent a car for a short period of time through Zipcar or Hertz. Within within the tolling side, you can find out whether you've got direct buses, whether, what kind of tolling opportunities you've got, or transit opportunities, And so, yeah, I think the whole connectivity on the phone is changing the way that we think about transportation and giving us options we've never had in the past.
How much of that is due to really the explosion of smartphones and those kinds of devices that really bring almost an unlimited amount of information to a user's fingertips?
It's all being driven by that. It's a generational thing. We've now come to expect to be connected all of the time, everywhere we are, and cars are going to become just simply nodes on the network. And you're seeing that as the OEMs are introducing new cloud-based solutions to bring content and applications into the car, because you now expect to have everything that you can have on your phone or in your office in your car. And that too is revolutionary. 2-3 years ago, you would never have thought that would happen, and that automobile manufacturers would allow you to bring outside content into your vehicle.
A lot of what we've discussed so far is basically heavily urbanized metropolitan areas, solutions that technology can provide there. What about more rural areas?
One of the great new safety steps that we're looking at is what's called the Connected Vehicle Program. And that's vehicles that communicate with each other, vehicles that communicate with the roadside. This is a program that DOT has been sponsoring with the automobile manufacturers that the U.S. DOT estimates can reduce non-impaired crashes by 81%. So that's a safety technology on par with seat belts, electronic stability control, airbags. They're going to make a decision about that about whether to regulate that at the end of 2013. That will have probably more of an impact on rural areas than it will in urban areas, because it'll tell you where there are vehicles or other vehicles or cars or bikes in areas that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to see them, and they can prevent the accidents that occur and people crossing highways in the rural areas.
So it's more of it almost sounds like crash avoidance just by almost having radar in your car.
It's the next step. Most cars now do have radar or LiDAR or other sensors that allow you to avoid collisions. What this is you're actually communicating with other cars. And so it goes beyond the radar, to places that you wouldn't have otherwise seen. Somebody entering the road from the left in a blind spot. So, if you're drifting off of the road, it'll correct you and pull you back into the lane. Those kinds of safety technologies.
Do you get pushback even at the concept level from people saying that this is going to invade my privacy if everybody knows where I am on the system at all times?
Privacy is one of the biggest policy issues around this. I'm probably not the best person to talk about it, because, if you think about if you have a smartphone right now, that smartphone's got GPS. And if you use that GPS, you are letting folks know where you are, and your information can be tracked. If you think about the information that you give up with the use of your cell phone, with the use of credit cards, we've already kind of passed that. I know it's a very important issue and one we need to manage, but we do manage it quite effectively in the commercial banking industry, in the tolling industry. I mean, we're collecting data about where people are, and you don't see that exposed on a regular basis. So I think it's something that people worry about, and it's something that we need to manage. I also think it's a generational thing. I know my kids don't have any expectation of privacy. They're out there tweeting and Facebooking and letting the world know about things that, quite frankly, I think are personal things, but it's just a different generation.
So with that generation, what can your kids expect to be talking about technology-wise when they're our age, sitting here at the Transportation Forum? That'll be the 35th Transportation Forum. What kind of technology are they going to be discussing that's been deployed?
I think they're going to be talking about either semi-autonomous or autonomous vehicles. I think that's really that's the big future. All of this is leading up to that, and what's going to drive how much autonomy we want is our own culture, our own liability culture. But there is technology now that allows you to, to enter into cruise control, but it's called adaptive cruise control. So it'll keep you a safe distance behind another car, even as that car slows down or stops and starts. So that's getting pretty close to semi-autonomous driving. You can commercial vehicles or buses now can run without can run through sensors to maintain a safe distance, so you don't need drivers in each of those vehicles. So we're moving towards an environment where we will see greater amounts of autonomy. You've got cars that park themselves. You got you're aware of the Google car, which has logged over 200,000 miles in Nevada autonomously. So I think that's what they'll be talking about. And they'll be talking about, is there still a role for a gas-powered car? Are we going to be moving into, at least in cities, single or double-person pods that are electric and that are connected? That's where they're going to be talking about.
For more information on the Intelligent Transportation Society of America, log on to their website, www.itsa.org. That's it for this edition of the TxDOT podcast. What questions are on your mind? Email this podcast at asktxdot@txdot.gov. And for more TxDOT information, including links to our social media sites, log on to our website, www.txdot.gov. That's TxDOT.gov. For all of us here at TxDOT, and for Scott Belcher, I'm Public Information Officer Larry Krantz, reminding you to get the facts on transportation in Texas by logging on to the TxDOT website, and to keep an eye out for TxDOT, working for you.